Hey everybody, welcome back to the next episode of Council Sessions. No, this is not Beyond the Saga because Hannah's with me. How are you doing, Hannah?
I'm doing well. How are you?
This is fantastic having you on this show. You haven't done one of these, have you?
No, this is my first one, and I'm not going to lie, I was waiting for you to say welcome back to Beyond the Saga. I was waiting for it.
I almost did, actually. I was thinking about it. But no, we are doing council sessions because there's been an interesting topic that has popped up that I want to deep dive into. And since you haven't done one of these, I wanted to get your opinion on this because I think this is going to be very relevant to what we see in the upcoming Obi-Wan series, which debuts actually this Friday. Oh my gosh, can't even wait.
So excited.
Yes. But first, do want to thank everybody for joining us. Of course, we are Inside the Force, and if you're watching us on YouTube, welcome. Thank you for subscribing, or if you haven't subscribed, subscribe to this to get all of our videos. Of course, we launched a Patreon just recently, and thank you to our patrons. You are seeing this early, obviously. We're releasing these episodes early for you all. So, but if you're interested in looking at our tiers and what you can get from us, that would be patreon.com/inside the force. Okay, so as Obi-Wan looks to make his debut on Disney Plus here for a 6-episode run, there's been a lot of discussions going on regarding, centrally in a way, because of the return of Hayden Christensen as Darth Vader. There was an interview that Hayden did recently that talked about the fighting style of this show. And he basically described the fighting style as very similar to the fighting style that they did in the prequels. Of course, Hayden and Ewan had arguably the greatest lightsaber battle in all of the films, right? I mean, I would say so. This is incredible.
I'll share my opinion later.
Yes, we'll get to that. But there's no denying the fighting styles of the prequels. A lot of physical movement, as well as how do you just say it? Sword mastery. I don't know. However. I should have probably researched exactly what they called the fighting style, but it's a mixture. I know it's a mixture of different styles.
Yeah, it's several different arts, and I think there might be some fencing involved, but yeah, there are various different arts involved with that.
So the ultimate question that I want to get to here, which is one that I've been thinking about, is simply because of this fighting style and the way that this is going to be similar to what we see in the prequels. This is about 10 years after episode 3, which means we're about 9 years. We're actually closer to episode 4 than we are to episode 3. So, dare I say, should Lucasfilm think about reshooting the Vader Obi-Wan duel in episode 4 with Hayden and Ewan, with deep faking that they've done with Luke. They've done a little bit, with Rogue One with Leia. They could easily have Ewan. Ewan could actually do makeup probably and look like Alec Guinness in a sense. There's maybe not even deep faking to do, but because Vader would be Vader. I mean, should they reshoot that scene? Because to me, it seems a little out of place because, the excuse always been, Hannah, the excuse has always been that they are two old men in episode 4. That's why they're not really physically moving that well. But now we know at this point, Vader is only 41 years old in episode 4. So he's not old. I mean, I'm 44. I'm 40, almost 45. I feel like I can move better than Vader does in episode 4. Right? And Obi-Wan at this point is not that much older than, I think, episode 1 when Anakin's 9, I want to say Obi-Wan's probably in his early 20s. Right? So he's only maybe 10, 11 years older. So he's in his early 50s. I mean, it seems like they're the way they talk is like they're saying, I think Alec Guinness was close to that age anyway at the time. But anyway, I feel like the excuse has always been that these guys are like 70-year-old men that are playing. They're not. So anyway, long story before we get to you, get your take is should they reshoot it? Should they make this consistent with how they dueled in 3, how they're going to duel in this show? Because we haven't seen it yet, but we think it's going to be pretty good. And should it be equal to that in 4? Hannah, go.
You want me to go first?
Oh yeah, I want you to. This is my question to you first.
Okay, I'm gonna say no. They shouldn't.
Oh wow.
I'm gonna say no. They shouldn't. And
wait, did that was your first conclusion, or did you convince yourself?
That was no. That was my first conclusion. My first conclusion was no, but I couldn't put to words why it was no.
Okay. Wait. So that's a great answer, and I want your explanation. But let's get a little backstory in history. Okay. What was your take? Because I don't know if I've ever asked you this. What was your take of the special editions? Like when you did hate them. Okay, interesting. I hated them. Okay, if I would have known that, then I think I would have known you would have said no to that.
Right. Yeah. I don't think we've ever talked about the special editions.
Or basically what the current state of the original trilogy is right now.
Right. I still can't believe my dad actually still has on VHS the originals before the special editions. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Those are treasures. Did you like the special editions?
Oh yeah, I do. I think, long story short, I can go on a million reasons why I think it's best, but like bottom line is I think any improvement to the technology that he didn't have at the time is fine by me. I think anything that would have changed the story would have been a bad move, but I don't think anything he's done changes the story. It just improves the visual effects. So I'm okay with improving visual effects.
Okay, and I can definitely get behind that and agree with that. But to me, it was so jarring because it looked so different. Mm-hmm. That I just was like, this doesn't belong. I think it's like the same way why like Lord of the Rings will always live on as something so magical and is better than The Hobbit because they used a lot of practical effects.
Yeah, right.
The virtual effects.
Yeah, I will agree with you there that I don't think actually George went far enough. Like just improving a couple shots within a sequence, you're right. You can clearly tell it jumps from practical to digital. I feel like there's a lot of shots he should have just went all digital. Like, for example, honestly, the final battle in episode 4.
Oh my word.
Like,
yes.
He should have went full digital there. And that would have been an epic space battle. But there's a lot of bad shots still in there that kind of still throws you out of it. So I agree with you there. I think he made the improvements, but I think he should have kept going and fully did it. I mean, granted, I know a lot of people out purists to be like, well, I want it's so cool to see the original practicals. That's fine. Keep your version of that, the theatrical version, but give me the full digital version as well that draws me into the actual intensity of how that was. Anyway.
You know, I actually might change my answer here, but I need to ask you a clarifying question.
Okay.
Because it ultimately boils down to this. Are you saying we completely change the Obi-Wan Vader fight?
What do you mean by like it's the same fight, just reshot, or a different looking scene?
Yeah, like which one are we? Which one? Like if we're saying we want the fight redone, are we redoing it entirely, or is it a shot per shot redo?
No, I think what I'm saying is I don't think it's a shot for shot. I think
so you completely redo it.
I think it's completely redone. Yeah.
Okay. Then I stick with my answer and say
Have
no.
you seen the video out on YouTube that someone actually digitally created this?
Yes,
remake?
I did.
Okay. So that's kind of where this stems from too, right?
With that, I still think I side with
now
no.
that was obviously that wasn't as good, right? It would. I don't think it would look like that. I obviously still think you have the dialogue. I mean, the dialogue's important. You have the same dialogue. You have you strike me down, I'll be more powerful than you can possibly imagine. And,
right.
It's like your powers are weak, old man. It's like there's still that dialogue, but just when they're fighting, and it could be, again, the timing would still be the same. Like there wouldn't really be any length in time. I think the movements, the fighting, the style is just, so, I guess in a way it's the same length. It's the same scenes when they cut back and forth from, Luke and Leia to them. It's them fighting, but the style is just what we're used to. So it's not like we're going to obviously see them all of a sudden like fall into a reactor and they're fighting in a reactor, and it's still just the hallway of the Death Star. So it's the same timing, same scenes in a sense, but it's just the style that they're fighting is not just, fencing. It's whatever we see in the prequels.
Here's the thing. While the fights in the prequels are arguably cinematically better than the fights in the originals for obvious reasons, they're not as good when it comes to story.
The prequels aren't as good?
Prequels are not as good as the originals. Let's look at let's take a look at the two main fights that we think of whenever we think of the prequels, right? Let's start with Duel of the Fates. And I'm giving credit to my husband for this one because he pointed this out. And that's when I was like, okay, yep, this is why I think now. In Duel of the Fates, we see, it tells a story at first. We see a very distinct difference between Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan in their fighting styles. Mm-hmm. When Qui-Gon goes down, and let's compare this to the Luke and Vader fight in Return of the Jedi.
Okay.
So let's compare the two. So in both, there is something to initiate the anger within them, right? Qui-Gon goes down, Vader threatens Leia. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We see Obi-Wan physically start on the balls of his feet, getting ready to go. But then all of a sudden his fighting doesn't change. It's the same as always. And you would expect if he was ready to go like that, then the connection there would be anger, and maybe more anger comes through and there's a bit of regret that comes with that. Also, Maul seeing him flip over him and not do anything about it, that's kind of ridiculous. But then when you look at the Luke and Vader fight scene, Luke just goes ham and goes crazy on Vader because he lets that anger, you see more of an emotional story being told there. Mm-hmm. Duel of the Fates, in my opinion, while it is, one of the best soundtracks of all time, you don't have that story arc like you do in the originals. Same thing with the fight between, honestly, in my opinion, while it is a beautiful fight scene and it's incredible, I think that Obi-Wan and Anakin's fight in Revenge of the Sith is just too long. It's a lot of really pretty things to look at and a lot of great visuals, but you could tell a better story by cutting out a lot of it. Mm-hmm. Okay. And that's what makes the original trilogy fight scene so good, is that not only does the dialogue help tell the story, but the fighting within the fights tell the story. So my concern is that if we try to use the fighting styles used in the prequels and bring that to the originals, we lose that story and that emotional arc through the fighting. Does that make sense?
Kind of. Yeah.
Kind of.
I got different perspectives.
Okay. Yeah. Please.
So I think, let's start with Duel of Fates on my side. So I would have probably agreed with you 2 years ago.
Okay.
That that the fight was not that important in the sense that it was just cinematic, fandom, right? Fanboy, like we wanted to see that kind of like it's visually like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing. Lightsaber. We've never seen a lightsaber fight like that, right?
Oh yeah. We haven't seen a dual lightsaber like that before either, so
right.
That was pretty cool.
But now looking at it, and it's interesting you say that because I don't think I've ever thought of it like that. But in comparison to Return of the Jedi, I think you're dealing with two different people. Like Obi-Wan is an experienced Jedi Knight, and he has almost 20 years of training. So he was able to keep in check his anger and his hatred, and he purely fought with skill.
Wasn't he a Padawan?
He was a Padawan, but I mean, he wasn't a knight. Yes. Yeah, he was going through the trials. This was basically his trial.
Yeah, his trial.
Right? So he became a knight right after. Luke, no training. And there is rumors, or there's story behind that he basically tapped into the dark side. I mean, he was falling to the dark side because he couldn't control his anger and his hatred and his fear of what Vader was going to do to Leia. But that's what stopped him, right? I mean, he stopped and said no, and he threw his saber down. So yes, emotionally, that story was stronger, and that duel meant something. But here's the thing. Now, after hearing Filoni explain the Duel of Fates, I think the Obi-Wan Maul fight was still just that. It was just a Padawan trying to defend the death of his master. The most important duel in that was Qui-Gon and Maul. Mm-hmm. Because now we know that was the fate of Anakin, was him dying. So that fight is unbelievably mind-blowing, knowing that set the stage for Anakin. Okay, so let's go to episode 3. I think the length, yes, I agree. The length could be argued. I can see people's viewpoint if it's long or not.
Right.
But on the flip side of that, I think it clearly shows that Obi-Wan and Anakin, Vader, were evenly matched. Like no one could beat the other one. Like it truly was like, in fact, I think it even illustrated that, until the high ground thing, but if it was just on even level, like I don't think anybody, they'd still be fighting today. And that's saying something. I think that it actually even showed more so how strong Obi-Wan was, how powerful Obi-Wan was. Like he didn't get enough credit, I feel like, in the prequels. It was always about Yoda and Mace Windu and these other masters, that were even Ki-Adi-Mundi and Plo Koon and these guys they were on this council. They were the masters. Like Obi-Wan was still always just that guy out there on the field, doing stuff. And we never really saw how powerful he was. The fact that he defeated Vader in a sense, I mean, I think that, but the emotion of that scene at the end, when he's like, "You were my brother," and I mean, it's like,
yeah,
that made that duel, I think, and I think, in my opinion, when we see them fight again in the Obi-Wan series, I think it's going to change everybody's perception of that duel in episode 3. And that is why if you replace episode 4 with these actors, we get now the full arc of these of Ewan and Hayden. We're not just talking about Vader and Obi-Wan anymore, because we already know that the character arc there. And we're going to get more of that in the series. But now how Hayden and Ewan end. And how they fought each other in 3. the evolution of that, what we see in this series, and then the culmination of it in episode 4, that's what I want to see. Now, how they fight and what it looks like, yes, that'll be visually appealing, but I think emotionally, I'm invested in that, man. I know where these not just these characters, but where these actors came from. And it's like, I don't know. I'm just like, that would be just a crazy scenario to see. And and that's why that's the reason why I feel like I want to see that. Not necessarily for the actual duel being better, but to see these characters be the one, these actors be the one that finish that storyline. That's pretty cool, I think.
Yeah, that would be incredibly satisfying. And when you put it in that perspective, I mean, yeah, it would be very cool to see them do that fight. I just think, unfortunately, you're going back to the whole thing where if you do that, then every other lightsaber fight that follows it, if you were to show it to someone who never saw Star Wars before, and let's say that they did another special edition for episode 4, A New Hope, and they reshot the scene. Let's just throw it out there. Let's just say they did that. For all of us fans who've like seen Hayden and Ewan, like their whole relationship throughout this, to us, that's awesome. But to someone watching it, they'll see that battle, that fight, and go, whoa, that was awesome. And then they'll look at the preceding saber fights and go, oh, really? So if you redo that one, you're going to have to redo so my question is there a way they can reshoot it without putting it in the film? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, but I don't think, obviously, I don't think that would, I don't know. I don't think they would do that. But that's the thing too, is, I mean, you're talking about the preceding would be the Empire fight between Vader and Luke. Yeah. That isn't that bad. Like, I wouldn't redo that one at all.
No. And
because Vader fights, that's what's a little weird, right? Right now, it's like, we've got Vader in Rogue One. Now, he's not fighting a lightsaber, but he's moving a lot better than he does in episode 4, which takes place the next day. So you go from Rogue One to episode 4 and then episode 5, I mean, and that's 3 years later, and he's moving a lot better against Luke. So to me right now, Rogue One kind of made episode 4 look even worse.
Well, you're also taking into account, like, the thing is that I don't think the movies, I think with people being, especially with the whole debate of what's the order I watch the movies in, I think especially for that debate, it kind of negates any singular movie on its own before another movie. I think the scene within a scene is where you run into a problem. Potentially.
The scene within a...
Like you're swapping out a scene within a movie, because then the rest of it is like...
Yeah, but to your credit, like what you're saying though, if you do the change, let's just say you do the change to episode 4, and then somebody like my daughter, right, who is going to be 8 years old, let's just say a couple years from now, she sits down and watches them in chronological order, she would not see any kind of decline in any of the fighting. It would actually be, to me, it would actually seem more fluent if you see them in order. Now, if you see them out of order, totally, yeah. Well, actually, if you even see them out of order, I just think you'd have to, at some point, you've got to place them in chronological order in your head, right? To kind of explain, because, I mean, side note, Rogue One could have even been, Rogue One could have been dramatically critical by fans if it looked completely different than episode 4, which, it doesn't. I mean, they still have the X-Wings correct. All the technology is still, there's nothing like beyond the technology that we see in episode 4, right? So it's pretty seamless. Except for Darth Vader.
That is a pretty awesome scene. Like that just,
totally. But he's moving, like he you can tell it's Vader that he seems a little restrictive, but the way he twirls his saber and deflects, like he's moving like he does in episode 5 against Luke, not episode 4 against Obi-Wan.
Well, you could argue in episode 5, Vader Vader is very much defensive for the most part.
True.
That fight
Very true.
Trying to
Except the scene where he's like literally wailing on him.
Well, he's on that because Luke hit him. So then Vader was like, all right, fine. Boom, hand gone.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So,
I mean, he was swinging hard at him, you know, but I mean, but you know, again, it's a different, even that looks like a different style. Like there's no prequel Anakin in that scene. Right.
Yeah.
So it does, he does have to, that's why I don't think, again, I think it's an evolution. I think what we're going to see in the series, I definitely don't think it's going to look like the prequels. I think it's going to be, you know, reminiscent of the prequels. Like there's going to be aspects of it because, again, it's true. These guys are older and I don't think they're going to move the same way. Vader's even a little more restrictive, right? We haven't seen him. That's the thing too, right? Besides fighting Luke, we haven't seen him fight anybody else on screen, right? With a saber. So, well, I mean, in live action.
Oh, live action. Okay.
But that's the thing too. And Rebels, I mean, he's fighting really good against Ahsoka, which is after this, right? So, anyway,
I guess maybe I also always saw the fight in episode 4. I always saw it as more of a more like a game of chess than an actual fight.
Mm-hmm.
That's like, I've always seen it like that. Especially because it's so different from what we see in Empire Strikes Back. I've always seen the fight between Obi-Wan and Vader in A New Hope as very much of a strategic type of fight. Of Vader trying to figure out, why are you really here? And Obi-Wan trying to figure out, well, like in hindsight, we realize it's this. Is there any way to save him? And maybe that perspective of that fight will change due to the Obi-Wan series, because who knows, Obi-Wan might get to the end of the series and be like, well, Vader's a lost cause, or he might get to the end of the series and be like, no, there's still some good in him. So for me, I've always like, that's why I've never desired like this crazy fight between Obi-Wan and Vader, because it's like, it's very strategic. It's not meant to be.
That's interesting.
It's not meant to be Revenge of the Sith, which I also like too, because to me that also brings it full circle, because they had this huge battle, and now it's like two old friends who like deep down still love each other, but they have to fight, and they're trying to figure out what the other person wants and how to get what they need. Yeah.
That's interesting. You know, another thing too, which I think lends to your thought about that. You know, Obi-Wan, and now we have the backstory, because at the time when we first saw that, we didn't have the prequels, so we didn't know really what that smirk was right before he gave up. You know, that smirk that he sees Luke, and then he looks at Vader, and he kind of has that half smile before he, you know, gives himself up. Now we know, at least in my opinion, what my thought is that he's putting himself back to when he saw Qui-Gon get killed. And he knows the effect it had on him to, you know, be better and be a stronger Jedi. And so I think, to me, in a way, it was like, and obviously George probably knew what he was doing at the time, you know, but it's like, in hindsight now, it's like he's seeing himself watching Qui-Gon get killed, and he's like, okay, this is going to help him just like it helped me. So he sacrifices himself. That's how I read that scene now. Now that I know the prequels. But the crazy thing, it's like at the time, again, not knowing the prequels and only seeing that, it's like, no, he knew that this is Luke's father, but no one else did, right? So not even an audience knew at the time before Empire came out, right? So it's like he sacrificed. It's like, why did he sacrifice himself? Why did it's like, oh, that he's his father, and it's like he wants Luke to get pushed to train and become that Jedi so that he can, defeat his. I think Obi-Wan thought he needed him to defeat Vader, because I think, like you, I don't think he thinks Vader can come back. But the only way to destroy the Empire is to kill the Sith, right? So anyway, okay, so I think I'm at. I think I'm at they still should. You are not, right? You say no, they should not.
I would say yes, I would say this. If they did it, I would want it to be in a way that it was not inserted into the movie.
Not inserted in the movie. Okay.
So I guess in general, no.
No, you're no, I'm yes. Now here's the side question, just yes or no.
Okay.
Do you think, just bottom line, do you think Disney, Lucasfilm will ever even do it? Will they even do it?
They're money milkers, so yes.
Really? You think they will? Because I don't think they will.
I think if it's a way to sell another movie that's essentially the same thing that's existed, just swap one thing out, then yes, they'll do it. If they know it's going to bring it, if they know it's going to rake in money, they will do it.
Well, in that case, though, don't you think that they would have to put it in the movie, though? If they were going to make it, yeah.
But your question was not, the original question was not if you think they will, it's if you think they should.
Should. No, correct. Yeah, and that's why I wanted to, because I think they should, but I don't think they will.
Oh, really? Why?
No, I don't think I just don't, I truly think that the versions we have of 4, 5, and 6 right now are it. I don't think they're going to go back and touch them anymore.
Man, I hope you're right.
Which again, I'm still up for them fixing stuff and making the visual effects a little bit better, but I don't think they'll go back and reshoot them and insert them. I think there's still part of them that still wants to keep the Alec Guinness part of episode 4 in there, you know what I mean? Like, the great Alec Guinness. So I think they should, but I don't think they will. So that was a good debate. I like that. That was a good discussion there. I think, I feel like I could talk forever about that because
absolutely.
Because it is really crazy to now sit back and we have all of this content now and all of these interconnected storylines across these generations now, it's crazy how it's playing out and so many 40 something years later, and we're still learning about scenes that happened 40 years ago. Right. So it's crazy to think like that. And that's, to me, man, that's the beauty of Star Wars. I think it's just, it's always new. It's always new. It's episode 4. I mean, the original movie, there's still ways that we see it differently now with what's coming out. You know what I mean? With what's coming out around it. So it's awesome.
Yes, indeed.
So I did think too, Hannah, before we got on here, that I hope we didn't prematurely do this.
Oh no.
Oh,
okay.
I wonder, I'm just saying, like, I'm it's out there. I want to put this out there before the series come out, but I'm wondering after we actually see them fighting, if our thoughts will change.
I'm sure I don't know if they will or they won't, but it would definitely be interesting to see if opinions and perceptives change.
Yeah, agreed. So maybe we'll do that afterwards.
Yeah,
so
that'd be good.
All right. Thanks, Hannah.
Thank you
for joining me. This was fantastic. Thanks everybody for watching and listening. Again, go to youtube.com to subscribe to all of our videos on there, or subscribe on any podcast platform. But if you want some Patreon exclusive content, go to our Patreon, join there /Inside the Force on Patreon. Check out our tiers, get all of our episodes early, and get some content that is just Patreon exclusive. We will see you next time on Council Sessions. Thank you, Hannah Burr.
Thank you, Dave Cottingham.
Thank you. Take care, everybody. Enjoy Obi-Wan. That's going to be awesome. See you next time. May the Force be with you.